G'day, sir.
Hello.
We are back.
Again.
It's been so long.
It's been so long, and I haven't even changed shirt.
Oh God, come on, Rob.
It's fine. The people need to know that I have only one shirt.
And it's the Dua Lipa shirt because
Yes.
you love her.
I
You're such
enjoy.
a basic bitch.
I enjoy her music.
You're a basic bitch.
Okay.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with being basic.
No.
With that, why are we here, Rob? This was your idea, so you
was
should
it?
actually. I think so.
I think we had a few different shows that we wanted to talk about because, of course, we got into a kick of talking about TV after doing Heartstopper.
Mm-hmm.
And we figured, well, we couldn't narrow it down to like one show, so let's just discuss a bunch of shows.
And so this is probably going to be similar to our top 10 in terms of format,
Yeah.
where we'll go one at a time with intro, but it's not. This is not a top 10 in any way, shape, or form.
It's just, these are shows we just want to discuss.
It's just 10 shows that came to our heads.
Our first show that we'll be discussing is Netflix's Dahmer.
Very controversial,
Incredibly so.
but not how you'd think it would be.
Yeah, but strange in that. I wasn't leaping to watch this one again. I've seen most of it.
You've seen My Friend Dahmer, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
You've seen all of this one.
Yes.
Yeah, this whole Netflix show.
Yes, of
So,
course. I stopped. Oh,
yeah.
I actually think a few people did stop, but I knew I wanted to get to the end bit.
Yes, and I think probably the fact that it's taken me so long to get through it, and I am still not even through it, is because...
Have you not finished it?
No.
We should also establish, while Rob's seen every bloody movie, he's a completionist and he's seen everything in movies, I've seen much more TV than
She's
he
more
has.
of the TV, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't completed the whole thing, and it's I think mainly because I just every time I know what's coming, and I kind of don't want. I have to ready myself to
what
watch
are you
what's
up
about
to?
to happen. To be honest, I think I'm only in like episode 2.
Oh my God, why are we talking about
Because
this?
you've seen the whole thing, and I think the fact that like
Okay.
I know what goes on, so I'm just like I've got to ready myself to watch the next episode, but. Even for those who don't know what's about to happen, it's been a show that like everyone's been hooked on, but it's been, you know,
But again, not for the
widely
reason you think.
unbingeable.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll take over from there because essentially the show I think is structured quite intelligently for what it is. And a lot of people that go to the true crime stuff, they will go there for the awfulness, for the trauma, for the shit that you don't like want to see. And so this show begins, its first couple episodes is about that stuff. It is about showing you him in his full glory, like, you know, all the stuff you'd expect to see from a serial killer biopic. But where the show actually gets interesting is in the second half, after he's been captured. And this isn't a spoiler.
We all know what happens to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, it's history. After he gets captured, that's where it gets interesting because that's when we start delving into the effects on the victims. We start seeing things from their perspective. We start focusing on the court case. And most interestingly, it starts looking at and criticizing literally the thing that it is also causing, which is this sensationalism in true crime and in the macabre and people becoming obsessed with this evil other. It's looking at the people that sent him love letters and money and was like, oh my God, you're my hero, and made comic books and basically made him a superhero. When this guy literally used to murder, eat, and fuck dead bodies.
Would you say that it probably falls into a category of a few things we have discussed in the past, which is it knows what it's doing and it's doing it well, but to be honest, the people watching it, you know, most people aren't smart enough to discern the difference between something that you have to pass judgment on versus something that, oh, that's cool, oh, the gore's cool, oh,
Yeah.
I'm here for the weird, kinky stuff.
See, I think what this show is doing, and I don't know how successful it's been, but I like that it tried to do this. I think it knows it. And I mean, I already mentioned this, but it's trying to pull in these people and then kind of educate them. Number 2 that we want to talk about is Andor, new Star Wars show on Disney Plus, starring Diego Luna as his character Cassian Andor from the spin-off movie Rogue One that some people like and some people really don't like.
You might find in this room there's one person who really likes it.
I don't really
and one
like it.
person
I
who
like
really
it.
hates it.
I don't really like it. I like it. I enjoy it. It's fine. Which is why when this was announced, I couldn't have rolled my eyes fucking harder. There was no character I was less interested in seeing the story perspective of than Cassian Andor. Turns out it's going to be pretty fucking good.
It turns out it's like probably the shot in the arm that Star Wars has needed for decades.
Oh, I don't know. Mandalorian's very good.
Mandalorian is Star Wars fan service, the show.
And this is the opposite.
This is the opposite. This is, hey, for all those people who, couldn't give a shit about Star Wars, we've actually given you something that's well shot, well acted, well directed, and kind of interesting.
Well, it's basically a modern spy thriller, political spy thriller with a Star Wars skin on it. I really didn't think I expected to like it, but it was one of those shows where I started being like, ugh, I'm on my phone watching it, and then I slowly put my phone down, and then all of a sudden I'm paying attention to every moment.
I can really encapsulate how strong Andor is with one anecdote where I'm watching it, episode 3 or 4 or something, and my partner walks in and she's like, what are you watching? I'm like, Andor. What's that? Star Wars. And she's like, ugh, she couldn't give a shit about Star Wars. So she's sitting next to me, typing away on her laptop, doing her own thing while I'm watching my show. And just what's happening on screen was so distracting because of the high quality of the acting and the camera work and the writing that she's sort of not doing her work, and she sort of looks at me and she's not really she's like says, what's going on here? Is this like a modern Star Wars? What's happening? And I was like, no, this is like set even before the original film. It's just, she's like, yeah, but why is like the acting like high caliber drama? And why is the writing interesting?
That's a good question,
what's going on here? And I was like, and then she was like, huh.
This is what I really like about the show. Just when you think you've gotten a hold of what it is, it changes, you know? It's like a show about rebels, and then all of a sudden it's a heist movie, and I say movie, and then all of a sudden it's a prison break.
It's the most anti-fascist kind of story that Star Wars has ever done, which is saying something considering that Star Wars is supposed to be anti-fascist from the beginning, but this is the only one where I actually feel like that this universe is controlled by Nazis that I'm afraid of.
I'm actually afraid of the Empire, and also they're bastards. They're not just cartoon villains. What is the next one, Rob?
The next one is
Speaking of controversy.
No. The next one is the universally beloved, totally not controversial Marvel show, She-Hulk.
The show that really made me realize what a cesspit IMDb has become.
Yes. Now, I should preface. I think we both enjoyed this show.
Yes.
You probably enjoyed it a lot more than I did.
No shit. And I think a big part of that is because of my gender.
And I'm not going to deny that. See, my partner also really enjoyed it. I think the thing is, I didn't hate this show. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I really can't be holding this show to that high of a standard, considering it doesn't take itself that seriously at all, and it is a big laugh.
Actually, so with this show, I can't remember who told me this, but the best way I've heard this described, this is the first Marvel show that's an actual TV show. It doesn't really have an arc beyond Jennifer's character development. Like, the story itself, each episode has its own story. It's basically fixed by the end, or it's resolved in some way, shape, or form. You have a kooky cast of characters, and you have fun, like, guest appearances. Except in this case, rather than them being guest appearances from celebrities, they're guest appearances from, like, random parts of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, like all these C and D list characters that you would never think would appear in a film.
The cameos are the characters, not the actors.
The other rebuttal I have when, people like, it's crap or whatever. A lot of comic book fans are like, oh, you've ruined She-Hulk or whatever. And I think, like, you can't even actually really say that with a straight face, because if you read She-Hulk comics, they are stupid and silly and dumb, and she's talking to the camera.
Yes, well, she breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, so it's not like it's not representative of what She-Hulk comics have been since the fucking 70s. But I think if you're somebody who dislikes the show for completely healthy reasons, I can't fault that. Yeah. I haven't met anyone who hates it for all the unhealthy reasons of why it's getting review bombed online, but I don't deny that those people definitely exist in droves.
Yeah, well, they also don't matter, because they're also probably hate watching it, and that just gives it more ratings, which means it got a season 2.
Yeah, fair.
So let's move on. Number 4. This is a show I've recently become obsessed isn't the right word, but I've recently really enjoyed, which is Wednesday. If you like dark academia, YA mystery stories, you'll love this show. I think the Character development is extremely interesting. I think Jenna Ortega is amazing as Wednesday. The cast of supporting actors, adult actors like Gwendolyn Christie and Christina Ricci, like they're just awesome. And it's just a really fun, dark academia, YA mystery story.
Given the genre that it is, which is, as you've outlined, I think...
Not exactly the target
Not
audience.
exactly the target audience, and it's not like I've disliked things of that genre. I have very much enjoyed. I think because I'm not the target audience, I think I'm capped for now. Maybe if it had come out, you know, instead of, say, Sabrina Chilling Adventures or whatever.
It's much better than Chaos, by the way. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
All right.
So much better. So
I watched that whole show, and you know,
no.
season 1 and 2 were great, and season 3 and 4 were dog shit.
Yep.
So I think, given that I'm not immediately leaping to watch shows of this kind, I think it's the fact that I was a little burnt on Sabrina, and I was like, okay, here's another one.
Yeah.
And the Addams Family as well is like, I know that it's, you know, very popular and famous, and started as like a strip in the 30s, and there's been iterations forever, to the point where I even was like, that's a fun nod having Christina Ricci show up in this, because I immediately was like, she's Wednesday in the 90s.
Lots of people didn't know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, that was the first thing I spotted.
We're the right age group for it.
Right.
A lot of the younger Gen Z generation don't know that. The annoying millennials are like, you didn't know that? Gatekeep. You know, it's like, it's fun for us. It's a fun cameo, but she's still an interesting character. The character's actually got a whole thing that goes that happens. So like, it's just a fun cameo that you're not going to know. It's like when you watch things that have been rebooted from the 60s and stuff. Speaking of you, though, being the actual target audience, let's talk about Succession and Yellowstone. Yeah. I'm just going to sit back for this one.
Yeah, that's fair. So
I don't watch either of these.
You haven't seen either. So Succession is, look, I'm not going to, you know, be saying anything controversial when I say Succession is brilliant. I think it is probably like the premier sort of like high HBO drama prestige show on at the moment. You know, it's just the impeccable cast and the really clever script, and it's very, very popular, and it's the one that's sort of most reported at the moment, in the same way that, like, you know, a Game of Thrones was, or a Sopranos, or a Breaking Bad, or a Mad Men. It's like that show now.
I'd say it's like the Mad Men or Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Weirdly, it's also a show that gets filed into that category of people not really getting it. Like, what the show is, it's about Logan Roy, who runs basically a giant Rupert Murdoch media empire, and he is so toxic that he has basically ruined his now very selfish and self-absorbed children who've never wanted for nothing, and they're just kind of like fighting over who gets to succeed him as the heir to the company. And you're just seeing, hence the name, and you're just seeing all of the toxic behavior and the sort of out of touch behavior of these idiots. And it's basically just this tragic tale, which can be very darkly funny, of one man having basically destroyed his family despite, you know, achieving millions. But it does appear to sometimes be a show where people file Logan Roy and the other characters as like, oh, badass, what a great businessman, what a badass, you know. And it's like, okay, there's another one. People completely missing the point. No, you shouldn't be running your business like anyone in Succession. Let's just be clear on that. So it's an incredibly nuanced and clever show. And I then, to tie it into Yellowstone, which is, we're putting them together here, I was totally expecting, Succession's the one that's just blowing up in the ratings and it's got all the viewership. And then I found out that no, not even close. The show that's just like eclipsed any show on right now in terms of viewership is this show Yellowstone. And I was like, the fuck? Like, I've never heard of this. Like, how have I never heard of this? If you look at the news media,
no one's talking about it.
It's just either Succession or Euphoria or other shows that might come up on this list. No one is talking about Yellowstone, but every other show on it has like a fraction of Yellowstone's viewership. So I'm watching it and I'm midway through the first season and I hope it gets good later. And my mind was kind of blown a little bit, being like, oh my God, like how is this show so popular? And found that like it's basically every single person of the baby boomer generation is watching
it's all the
show.
boomers. And that's exactly why you haven't heard about it, because They don't use the internet as
news media doesn't report on what they watch.
What gets reported on is the stuff that's being talked about on BuzzFeed and TikTok and Instagram and even Twitter still.
That was just crazy to me because
fucking boomers don't use that shit.
But it's 10 years ago, something with this level of phenomena in terms of how much fucking pure cold hard cash it's making would have been at the top of every single article.
You know what it's equivalent to? Like a dynasty. You know, it's like a soap that has a huge ownership, but viewership rather, but it ain't a Succession. So with that, we should move on to our final 2 picks that are basically going to be their own
spoken
thing.
about as one.
Yes. So what are we talking about, Rob? What are we talking about?
We are comparing
the least controversial.
The least controversial House of the Dragon versus Rings of Power.
Yep. You may think this is an argument.
When you look, I'm just going to go straight to the data.
Go nuts.
Let's look at, say, Rotten Tomatoes, the critics. House of the Dragon versus Rings of Power. Their Rotten Tomatoes score is about equal. It's in the mid-80s. Yeah,
critics.
Yeah, critics. Yeah. Critics scores about the mid-80s or whatever. Then you go over to the audience score and House of the Dragon. The audience score is way, way, way up there. Whereas the audience score for Rings of Power is quite shockingly low. And then you also compare to, say, the IMDb. IMDb for House of Dragons, way high. Rings of Power, way low. Now, where do we fall on this, Alice?
Definitely not on that side.
Yeah, so for our money, and we've discussed this ad nauseum.
I'd like to think we're both balanced people who have seen many films and TV shows and understand what is quality.
Yeah.
So having said that,
Rings of Power, while not perfect, is a incredibly well shot, very interesting, thematically rich, well acted film that is very interesting. I kind of relate it to, this might be very high praise, and I'm not comparing it to being near as good as what I'm about to compare it to, but it feels almost like a fantasy version of The Wire, where every episode of Game of Thrones, every episode of The Sopranos, you watch that and you're like, oh my God, mind blown, and you've got to talk about it. Whereas The Wire was a little bit more like you watch an episode and you're like, okay. And then watch the next one, you're like, okay. And then it's like, only by the end of the season are you like, whoa. Yeah. So Rings of Power was like that for me. Not nearly as good as The Wire. Not at all. Yeah. Not even close.
Could get there.
Maybe. But that's how I felt about Rings of Power. So I was generally pretty positive on it. I thought it was quite enveloping. House of the Dragon
is fucking shit. I'm sorry, I'm just going to take it from there.
Let's go for it.
House of the Dragon. This show
makes you long for Game of Thrones.
It makes me long for season 8 of Game of Thrones. Like, the characters. Okay, this is a show that in one season somehow manages to time jump over 28 years. Like, I'm sorry, but apparently we're now going to take our time. A show where the rest of the story is meant to take place in a year. According to whatever the fucking bullshit that this is based on.
To be clear, there's nothing wrong with a show time jumping, but here's my problem, because The Crown time jumps all the time.
Sure.
My issue with the time jumps...
They also have every season has multiple years.
Yes. We jump 10 years at one point, effectively rendering the characters that we've spent 5 episodes with to be completely new characters by the time we meet them again. They've had entire lives in between the two scenes we've just seen.
Some of the actors change, but not others.
So we've seen things that all of a sudden in the time jump we meet a new character or multiple new characters who have had these whole arcs established in the block of time we didn't get to see that then wrap up in a scene, and I'm like, well, I didn't get to meet them. I didn't see that progression. I didn't see anything. But then just
as you start to get to know it, we have another 5-year time jump.
And effectively rendering everybody to be new characters again. So it's kind of illustrated with one scene for me where you have King Viserys make Otto Hightower no longer the hand of the king. They have this big argument and he pulls the hand of the king.
It's a big moment.
It's a big, big moment. 10 years later, he's just handed the king again.
Yeah.
So
we don't even see the conversation.
In the time jump, they just reconciled. I'm like, fucking big moments need to advance the plot.
Yes.
They need to advance the characters, and you've rendered them meaningless. And that's how I felt about nearly everything in House
And you can tell that they're just running. This is based on the Dance of the Dragons. They're like, we need to get to the Dance of the Dragons. We need to get to the Dance of the Dragons. Which, again, I will emphasize, only takes place over 1 to 3 years. So we've just spent 28 years in one season, and now we're going to be spending 3 seasons on 1 to 3 years.
The other common rebuttal that people have, which is like, oh, well, we need to see the context to understand the war. And my rebuttal back to that...
remember the fucking context.
My rebuttal back to that is, at the very beginning of Game of Thrones, episode 2 or whatever, I didn't need 10 episodes of preamble showing me the war against the Mad King.
Yeah.
They just fucking talked about it, and I got it. I got the
It's
context.
lazy. This show feels lazy. Not to mention, this is a show that's meant to be like girl power, woman power, blah, blah, blah. In the first episode, it has one of the most traumatic birthing scenes, and I can take a lot, I've ever seen, which is literally about a woman's choice being taken away from her, which also leads to nothing. And then you have all these women characters where you're going to be like, oh my God, they're so amazing, except it's going over the bullshit of pitting the 2 main women characters against each other. And if you know what happens in the Dance of Dragons, you know how it fucking ends. And you know what? I'm going to spoil it because it already exists. I don't give a shit. It ends with... Are you fucking serious?
I can see them spinning it to say that, oh, well, the show's making a commentary about how in patriarchal society women won't be able... No, I agree with you. I can see that that's what...
I know that's what they're doing.
I think that's what they'll say.
It's bad.
But
it's a bad idea.
It's like, you know...
It's bad writing.
Well, and also considering that the final episode of the show, I mean...
Oh my God.
Look, to be honest, it was the most interesting and most enjoyable episode, but...
It's not saying very much.
Not saying very much. And also, it's just hilarious to me that, like, the reason why the war is starting now...
It's a goddamn... literally a comedy of errors.
No, it's like I've seen the almost exact same scenario in an episode of Seinfeld.
And also in every romantic comedy era, which is basically the reason war is happening is because someone overheard something that wasn't intended for them and out of context.
And then also now as well...
And if they'd had a single conversation with anyone else, it would have been abated.
And also, I'm sorry, Eamon, but what did you fucking think was going to happen?
Another major story moment, and it's literally a whoops.
Yeah, whoopsie daisy.
It
war
honestly
started.
should have had the Curb music behind it. Dum 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 da 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 dum da da da. My dragon ate the other prince. Fuck, war's gonna happen now.
And also, on that note, how did they know that like, how did they know that happened? Because as far as they're concerned, they were flying above the fucking ocean.
If I was Edmund, I'd have been like, I didn't fucking...
Did they drag the ocean? Like, how did they find his body?
Well, I guess maybe they're going to try and answer it in the next season. But yeah, if I was Emmond and my dragon just fucked up that badly, I would have been like, last time I saw him.
Let's not forget Rhaenys. Yeah. She had them all dead to rights.
With a dragon.
And there was no reason why she didn't just smoke their ass.
Yeah. Oh, no. The reason is it wasn't her war.
Fuck off. Yeah. Like, come on.
And with that, I think we need to end this.
I think we do. We're both very hangry.
House of the we're hangry. We're angry. House of the Dragon sucks. Rings of Power is good. I don't even care anymore. Like, I'm fucking over it. I'm against them using these beliefs, opinions, whatever you want to call it, and calling objectively good or objectively bad content what it should not be. I'm so sick of it. You should not bring this shit into what content is. It's good or it's bad. And you need to start understanding what good content is, and maybe we just need to re-educate the entire public.
Starts with us. And with that, let's get through.
Thanks for taking...
Let's both walk off.
Yeah.